basically how to use Git, some of the basics behind it, and some understandings behind it. So the first thing is I want to go over this diagram. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. And what this is all about. So for Git, there's a few different concepts. There's your local repository right here. There's a remote repository, and then there's your workspace, and of course there's also an index. Usually people don't realize there's this index and local repository. They just understand that there's a workspace and a remote workspace, or remote repository. So the first things first is you take your remote repository and you clone it. I recommend using, at least the first time, cloning it using the GitHub GUI desktop interface, which is pretty easy. We go to one of the repositories and say clone, say open with desktop, and if it doesn't have, it'll ask you to download it. If you don't have it, it will also sorry, a little bit of music. It will also ask you which location you want to put it in, so that's pretty handy and nice. So then the next thing is understanding what all these things really mean. So when you have some changes in your workspace, you might want to deliver this to the remote repository. The first thing is you can add it to an index. So first things there, if you create a file, it's not tracked or anything like that. So you would add that to the index, and so that becomes tracked that you want to eventually make a commit. And so once you have all of your files that you want to create into a commit is like basically a container of the changes that you want to make. And so when you actually make a real commit, which means it locks it down into this set of changes, it'll go into your local repository. And to get it to the remote repository, you have to do a push. Now, it's potential that you have some conflicts where you have to do fetching and pulling from the remote repository, because there could be some changes that you need to bring in. So where this local repository actually lives in the file system is a hidden folder, a .git folder. So this .git folder actually has all of the history in like the objects, so it's pretty big. It's a very condensed version of all the history. So you don't actually mess with anything in the Git folder. That's how you have all of this local repository in there that's outside of your workspace. Your workspace is everything outside it. Okay. All right, so we have now pushed to the remote repository. The concept of a pull or a fetch actually takes all of the things in your history from the remote repository and puts it into that hidden Git folder, .git folder, into your local repository. So it's potential you maybe not need all of those changes locally in your workspace. You only want a couple of them. So I can show you. Sometimes I use fork to view things. For here, I can do a fetch. So I believe that there's going to be some incoming changes if I do a fetch, but I'm not going to bring it into my workspace. So I'll do a fetch. It looks like everything's up to date. For some reason, I thought there was some here in the pull. So if I did do a pull, it takes everything from the remote repository and puts it into your local workspace. So those are the concepts there. Okay, so there's some cases where you might want to, you made some changes, you want to like revert them. And that's where you can actually, let's say I'm right here and I accidentally messed up this change and you want to come back here. So you can right click, but this is using fork. But in the same concept is you want to reset your head, ahead means the pointer to where you're at, to this location. You can right click and reset this branch to here. And there's a few different options. There's a mix. The two that I use is mixed and hard. A hard actually discards completely all the changes. Mixed actually leaves those changes and unstaged. And so that can be pretty handy if you accidentally make some changes or add things in here that you don't want to. So that's what can be handy for reverting things or something like that. Now there's a concept of reverting a commit too. So I could right click any commit and you can say revert this commit, which is basically does the opposite. So I can say, hey, revert this commit, and it creates a new revert right here. And that just is the opposite of what this previous one was, or this one was right here. So, but I don't want that at all. So I want to actually reset back here, reset hard back here. Okay, so we're back in action. There's also differences. You can compare your local repository workspace and diff between the indexes. So let's go dive into Intellij. What covered cloning the project, updating the project in Intellij. The best thing is, so once you have cloned your repository in using GitHub client, you can create an open file, open your workspace, and let's see. Let's go to the location, document, so GitHub, and then you can find your workspace. So this is my workspace right here, and you say, hey, okay, open up this workspace. So that's the folder, and it will open it up here in your Intellij, and it will be smart enough to know all of the Git connections. So go to VCS, and you have like almost all the same options: fetch, pull, push, all this stuff, clone. I recommend not cloning in here just because it seems like it gets kind of wonky. So one thing, the easiest way to find the history is going to the root of the project and clicking this little history button. So you can see here, you can actually do that same concept in fork by like right clicking this commit and say reset branch here, and you have all these different ones, hard, mix. Those are the two options I like to use. To do, see on my list, to do updating your project, you would just do this right here, which would actually pull the project, pull the latest into your project. So I can click update project. There are two concepts here, merging, rebasing. I'm not going to go into them at this point in time, but it would update the project. I'm not going to update two, just in case we can do a show what a merge and rebase is. The second thing is creating a commit. And I usually just click this button right here, the checkmark commit. And what this will do is look at all of the files that maybe are outstanding. This is the, if we look at the picture, this is in the workspace and it's unversioned file, so it's untracked. If we did want to track this, we can say add to get ignore, so we don't want to have anyone ever check this in, or you can say add to VCS. So say, hey, check that. So now it's going to be added, and now it's green, and so we can now do a commit on that. But we don't want to, so we're gonna remove this from the VCS. Actually, we're just gonna delete it. So okay, so let's actually do a change on a file. Say adding comment, and we will do a check And you can see it's pretty smart, especially if you have these files already. It'll say, hey, looks like you added this and this is a change. It's actually super really convenient too if you're actually making lots of changes. You can be selective on your changes and say, oh, I don't really want this change in this commit. I only want this one change. And you can see it's pretty smart. It's one of two changes and you can commit that change. And so yes, that's pretty nice. Another thing too in Intellij before your commit is you can optimize your imports, perform code analysis. You don't need to do that one, but rearrange code and reformat code. Those are just some really nice things. You can also do checking to-dos and seeing what was added. What this will do is it'll help standardize what we have in our code if you do want to, because it'll set everything up and clean it all up. So that's pretty handy. So yeah, I would recommend doing that. And okay, so let's actually create a commit. So we'll create this commit. We'll add both changes. We'll do commit. There's another option to commit and push. I don't usually do that. Usually I stack up a bunch of commits, and then I'll do a push later once I feel like it's a good stage. So here we go. In the history, we're here. We go to this history viewer. We have a few things. These are kind of like tags or labels of what's going on. This right here shows that this is your local workspace, your local branch, whereas this right here, the origin, that's usually origin means that's the remote repository, and this is where the remote repository is at. So we're one ahead of the remote repository. Okay, so now the next thing I want to go over is a push. Push is pretty simple. You just go to VCS, git push right there. Boom, it'll push the project. I'm not going to push this because it's really not useful at all. So I'm not going to push this, but I want to, maybe I will go to and reset it. I'll go to stash and what stash is all about. So this is something that is pretty handy that a lot of people, if you're working in your own little area and you don't want to mess up any of your stuff, you can stash all of your changes, and then you can do your pull to get the latest. So hey, let's actually reset this right here. Reset branch. We'll actually do mix, so we have those changes still. Oop, wrong spot. We're gonna reset here and mixed. So our changes, we're back to the spot, but our changes are still in this file. You can see. We want to actually stash these changes because we want to actually do keep them off to the side. So go to VCS and get, and you say stash changes, and this is just a comment. So basically this is a commit and to put off to the side. So saving off changes and say create stash. Alright, so what that does is it pulls everything out and puts it off to the side, and now you're free to pull your change, pull the project or update the project. And you can see there's no changes detected. We go to our stashes, let's see, unstash changes over here. We can see a list of all the unstash changes, and you can actually view them too. It's like, okay, these are all the comments that I had. Let's view this. And this is, you can double click, okay, those are the changes, and might want to unstash. So we can say apply stash right here. Apply the stash. All right, so now they're back in this spot. So that goes over stashing. And now we're going to try to handle merge conflicts and merging. So I have a really cool picture right here. To just talk about what merging and rebasing is. So basically what we have is we have our master, and we have some changes that are happening. let's say that John has this feature and they're working on, and then there's another feature that you want to merge them together, or maybe this is just the master. They both started at this node, and then John created these two nodes commits, and then the master created these two commits, and we need to join them together. There's two options. There's a merge, which is basically combines and resolves merge conflicts and then creates a commit right here. And you can actually see in the history of these of the branches that they got merged together. So an example would be right here we have this one person created a commit, and then this other person right here had a commit, while this person right here created another kit onto the side, and this person merged them together, and they had a merge commit right here. So that's pretty handy. Now this is usually pretty good. You should probably do that if you have two big features and you're merging them together. Some purists don't really like this because it makes the history messy. If you have lots and lots and lots of branches, it can make things messy, but it makes it easier to revert changes if you do use the merge commits. Now there's this concept called rebasing. Basically what this does is we take the one workspace, we'll say it looks like the feature right here. This is the main branch right here. And this feature is going to be rebased onto this branch. So basically what it is it takes these two commits, puts them off to the side, brings these two commits in. So these commits are unchanged, their hashes are unchanged, and then these two commits are recommitted onto this linear history, but they have new hashes. So what this does, it makes the history linear and simplifies that, but it also is kind of rewriting the history, which is not always a problem, but it could be confusing if you look at the history. Potentially looks like, I could probably find some that I've done right here. So as you can tell here, the history is linear, and that's because I rebased and I didn't do a merge commit. So that's an example of what happened right there. Committed commit here. I did a rebase, so I pulled their change in, didn't change their hash number, and then recommitted these changes, or based these changes, which will mean that they have new hash numbers, which is not too much of a problem. So that's what rebasing and merging is all about. And actually, let's go and let's do a example of how to handle conflicts. So let's go to this, see what's changes in here. Okay, so there were some changes here. We're going to reset here and then make some changes. And the only time you're going to get merge conflicts is if someone edits a line that you edited. So let's go here and reset branch here. We'll reset hard. And this was on the tutorial island change. So we'll say we'll reset hard and we'll go to tutorial island, which is nope, not that one. Scripts tutorial island. And let's see what the change was. You can see here, it's a little bit easier to see what's going on. This one right here. Okay, this change was done on like 60, line 60. Okay. Is that right? Doesn't look right. Oh yeah, it was. Okay. Was it after the super draw? No, it was before. Okay. Intellij, adding merge conflict. Okay. So we're gonna do a commit here. We'll create a commit. Just doing the analysis. This is a big file, it takes a little bit of while to do. Don't really need to do the code analysis, but rearranging code is good, so we'll do that. So now we have a commit, added commit. Part of my misspelling, but I don't really care. So now we're going to do update the project and pull it in. And we can see we have the options rebase and merge. We'll do merge right now just to see what it looks like. Okay, all right, so we have conflict. So there are a few ways of doing this. The best way is to double click this file and it opens up in a editor, which came over here. And we can see, it looks like there's a few updates here. The easiest, so you can see that these are kind of like green, which you can just say, okay, we'll accept that change, whatever. Say, usually you pick, so this is what's on the server and this is what's on your local version. So I say, okay, these two need to change, go through all these changes. And this is the merge conflict because it's red. But we want to add this. Well, we also want to add this. So maybe we'll take this and we'll put it down right here. And then we can say ignore like that. So that's resolved. And say, okay, we want these changes. Usually you won't have to go through all these changes, only when you have problems. So, okay, so that was a pop-up said all changes have been merged. So we'll click apply and it will create a commit, merge commit. You can see right here, I made a commit that was on the server. There was a issue. So let's take a look at what the changes are here. And that was the merge commit right there. So pretty easy. Yeah, so that's how you resolve your merge commit. So let's redo this, reset this with a rebase. It's probably gonna look similar because there's a conflict. So reset branch here, hard, and we'll do this and we'll do rebase. So it's rebasing down here. Okay, so same thing with the resolve our issues. So say bam bam this. Well, this time we're gonna do the top. Next, close that. And we'll accept these changes. Okay, apply. And it'll create a commit. But this time it won't, it'll just bundle it together in this commit that we have because it got rebased. We won't have that side commit, the two commits, and seeing them join together. So that's why sometimes when you have merging branches, that having those rebasing gets a little tricky and not as clean. So we're going to do, we'll do it again without any merge conflicts. So we'll reset. Actually, I can't reset this anymore because we want to, let's see, we'll reset to this one right here. Reset hard. So that commit will be gone. And so we'll add just like a comment here and make a commit. And this shouldn't have any conflicts. This won't have any conflicts, and we'll do a pull, and we'll do rebase, and it should just automatically work because we don't have any issues. So rebasing, we don't have any conflicts. So all right, so there we go, got added automatically. And yeah, if we did a git push, you can see that's the commit. There could be a stack of commits, and you can double click and say, okay, this is a change that one did. This is really good to go over all the commits and review them before you actually do a push. And then all you have to do is click the push button and it'll go off to the server. So let me reset this back to here so we don't have that commit anymore. Let's take a look at, I think that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to related to Git things. I'm going to move on to other stuff for tutorials, but this will be, I'll wrap this one up and call this one done for this tutorial. So hopefully this helped you out.